is the Moveable Alphabet. So this is the Moveable Alphabet here. Again, I got it in cursive, but you can get it in print. And I really like this. There's like, they're wood letters. They're good quality. You can see all the consonants are here and the vowels are blue up here. I have Y, I teach initially as ya. So that is in the consonants. It also comes with the blue Y's if you're teaching it as a vowel, as E, I think. But since I don't do that, I have left them out. And it does have little dots for the I and the J. You will notice these are all lowercase. We are only teaching lowercase right now. I haven't started uppercase with my daughter yet. There are sandpaper letters for uppercase when we get there. But you know, we're quite far along past most of these steps that I'm going to talk about today, and still haven't introduced the capital. So you just stay with the lowercase for right now. Okay, so the Moveable Alphabet, what do you do with it? It is cool. So I would have them take out a work rug, and we put this out. In the initial lessons, I'm just going to introduce them to make sure they understand the connection, that these are the same letters that make the same sounds that they've been working on. So let me grab my A again here. One of the first lessons I had them do was take the sandpaper letters and match them to that corresponding Moveable Alphabet letter, just to make sure that they understood that that's what we're doing here, that these make those same sounds. Now with the pink, blue, green series, they give them specific words, and I haven't used that, so I'm not going to go into detail about that. But I think this is one of the major differences with the methods. As Marie O'Dwyer puts in her booklet, you want to follow the child's lead in this. If they have been exposed to a language-rich environment, if they know all of the sounds, including the basic double letter sounds, they should be able to write any word they want. So you would encourage the child to choose a word, and you might demonstrate with a couple words as first. It depends on the child, really. If they have words that they want to write immediately, just go with it. The important thing to keep in mind here is they're spelling it phonetically, so that's not always correct. So an example of that is for the sound A, we teach it as AI, not as AY. So if they want to write play, you've got P, U, and then they're going to use AI. And that is good. That is fine. That is what they should be doing. You are not correcting that right now. You correct it later. Correct it later when you're doing more spelling. But for right now, they are just writing words. And another thing that's important about this, as they write words, and let me back up. Let's say you want to give them some to start with. I would give them really easy ones. So I might say cat and have them, I might demonstrate first. Cat. How am I going to write cat? I'm going to find a K. And if they choose the other K, that's fine too. And A, and I need a T. So I'm going to find all those and I'm going to put them together and write cat. We're not reading. That's just something that I want to clarify here that's important. At this point, we are writing, but we are not reading. We are not going to then ask them to read back what they wrote. We are solely playing with the sounds and writing. And so this is something that they can explore for a while. They can write a bunch of words, some that you give them, some that you don't. You can give them objects or pictures to then write from as inspiration. They can write sentences. They can write phrases. Whatever interests them. I found that I did have to give her things. She wasn't, coming up with things on her own all the time. But the booklet says that they should come up with things on their own. So I think it's going to depend on the child. So the Moveable Alphabet is another step that's going to take a while. You're just going to let them explore and play with it for a while, and then you're going to watch them. And the idea is that one day you will see them starting to read. And it might be with the Moveable Alphabet. You might see them write something and then read it back. Or you might just be out and, see a stop sign and they are sounding out stop. And that is the golden point that you want to reach. That is when you would start helping them learn to read. So at that point, we're going to move on to the next step. So you've been using the movable alphabet for a while, and the child has started to recognize that they can read these sounds. So they've started putting them together, sounding it out. It's very exciting. So there are a couple activities that Dwyer recommends in her booklet that I've used with my daughter to kind of take them to that next step where they're starting to actually read the sounds and blend them together. And these don't... there's the object boxes and there's the action words, and it doesn't have to go, you could do either one first. So basically for the object box, you'd start with objects, your sound objects usually, and you start with easy, like CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant words, such as dog and cat, and what else do I have in here? Mop. You put them in a kind of a fun box because that's part of the attraction for the child. And you have little slips of paper, which I can't find right now. I had them for my daughter, and then when we moved, I think I threw them out because we were past this, and I haven't gotten there with my son yet. But I got little lined paper that I basically cut into strips. And what you do is in front of the child, you actually write out the words. So they have several objects to choose from in here. And I would write out mop. And they have to read it and match it to this. And it obviously is their reading and you're helping them. But it also connects to them that writing and reading is a way of communicating. I didn't say mop, I wrote mop, and she understood what I meant. So that is part of the beauty of that. So for object box 2, you would add a sound that has a double letter sound. The object box 1, they're just really easy consonant, vowel, consonant words that you're starting with. But then you're just going to add in like another layer of difficulty by adding the double letter sounds. So like something like fish, because it has the sh sound in it, but otherwise is phonetic. So you want to isolate it so it's just one. You don't want to add like really tough words in there. And like another example would be bee, uses the double E. So that's the object boxes. And you can keep the slips of paper in the box for a little while, and they can match it as many times as they want. And you can also, you know, I would refresh the objects every week or two and do it again. And after a little while, you don't have to write it in front of the child. You could write it separately. And this is also a really good time to come back to those 3-part cards that we were talking about. It's essentially that made for you. I would start with the object box and writing it out, but you could also have them match. Find easier ones to start with. I'm trying to see if there's, this is not the easiest, this is not, the farm animals are not the easiest one, but you would find some easy ones to start with, like maybe sun, things like that, to have them match the picture and the word, and then the one that has the picture and the word acts as a check. They can check their work. So those are ways for them to match in the object boxes. The other activity is action words. And she also suggests writing this on the slips of paper. I prefer to use just a chalkboard, or you could use a white erase board, because then we're minimizing the amount of paper we're using on this. But you'd start with ones that again are phonetic. Well, you want them all to be phonetic, but that are easy, such as run. So I would write run, and then she would have to read it and do that. Or it could be spin. It's a little more difficult because it's got the blend at the beginning, but you get the idea. And then you're going to again move on to ones that might have a double letter phonogram in it. And off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of one. I had a list at the time, and actually the Dwyer booklet provides some ideas in here as well. Again, if this is something you're interested in doing, I do recommend this booklet. She recommends things in the object boxes such as top, mat, dog, pen, hen, things like that. Let's see if she has suggestions for the action words in here. jump, nod, pat, pin, rub, run, things like that. And the second would be things like chop, shut, float, fish, chip. So they're miming these things. They're not necessarily doing all of them, but so those are the action word activities and the object box activities, which is the first step in their actually reading. The next thing you would do is introduce some puzzle words. So there are some words out there, most people know them as sight words, that are a little tricky. So this method is mostly phonetic. You're mostly going to try to sound things out, but there are words that are, especially ones that are pretty common when you're reading, that I think are important to introduce to the child. So there are things like and the are tricky. They're puzzle words. I made cards that I laminated with them, and we drilled them. We played games just like we would play games with the sandpaper letters. We learned a few of these at a time. And that was done in conjunction with the next step, which is actually starting to read little books. So I have a lot of options. You can actually see behind me here some more of our early readers, but I just pulled out some that are specific Montessori. These are Miss Rhonda's readers. And these are the really easy ones. Well, they're really short. These ones actually, this one specifically has things that are in a Montessori classroom. This one is, you know, lots of nature, animals, things like that. They're small, they're cute, they have cute drawings. But one of the things I would do is I would look over what books we had and we might want to read, and I would tailor what puzzle words we may be learning to those books, so that I give her more tools to be able to read what we were doing. This is another set of Miss Rhonda's readers. I forget what these ones are called. These are like the really small, easy ones. And I think this is set 1. Do I have set 1 and 2? I think this is just set 1. Yeah. But there's also a set 2. And these are nice. They were made by a Montessori teacher. So I will link them below. Yeah. So there's some early readers. And then these ones are by Joan Gilbert. And these ones actually do have some double letter phonograms. I'd mentioned before, you don't see as many of them as much in some of the early readers. But these are nice as well. So I will try to figure out where I got these. These ones have the double letter phonograms highlighted with different colors. So you can see sh for shell. So I will try to find where I got those. But we also used, these can actually be a little tricky to start with, to be honest. I like them, they're beautiful, they're Montessori inspired, but it is tricky to try to do, when you're sounding things out, when you're blending things, they kind of jump ahead. They don't just do the CVC words, like say the Bob books. Now, I'm personally not a huge fan of the Bob books because I just find them boring. But there are, some people love them, so you could love them and your child could love them. There are lots of options though. So this is actually one that I used early with my daughter that she really loved. It's a Now I'm Reading for Beginning Readers. It has 10 books in it. This is level 1. They have different levels. And this was all animals. So again, she's always loved animals. So this is a really good option for her. And it's much more just like the simple phonetic sounds. She is, yeah. And you could really tell, like at the beginning, we would get through maybe 1 or 2 pages a day. And then by the end of these, she would do maybe a whole book in the time that we were doing it. So it really, there's 10 books in here. Her skills really improved. I will link that one below too. I also got this Thomas one because I thought she would enjoy it. She liked Thomas at the time. But it was a little trickier, to be honest, just because a lot of the names of the trains in Thomas are not easy to read. And then I did go ahead, I am an Usborne rep, so I did go ahead and get the My First Reading Library, and we have gotten a lot of good use out of this. And I also got their phonics readers, which we haven't done most of yet because they're actually a little bit more difficult. I would say these ones are really good to start with, but they do advance rather quickly. She's at the place now where she comfortably reads these ones, and I think she could do these ones too. There's just some tricky parts. And we can do these now, but at the time when you're first starting, these are actually tricky. Okay, so we have been practicing reading with object boxes and action words, which we continue to do as we're introducing puzzle words, and we're starting with little easy books. Then Dwyer has you move on to a little bit more focus on the double letter phonograms, and specifically not just double letter, on the other sounds that they can make and how you can decode. So I went ahead and made, she recommends these phonogram folders, and I think in the classroom they're generally just like little red folders, and the inside, so I made mine a little fancier in that I used fabric. This is E, and made little pockets with the fabric, but everything that's in here is exactly what she describes in the book. So there's these for each of the sounds that can be made in more than one way. So on the front is the way we learned the sound. So the sound E, they have learned as double E. Inside, there are cards with each of the ways that you could see this sound. This is actually the like magic E, where there's the E at the end that makes the vowel say its name. EA can say E. EE can say E. IE can say E. Y can say E. So those are the different ways that you can make the sound E in the English language. And then for each of those, there is a little booklet, this is EA, with words that have that sound written that way. And it's highlighted in red. And so you have the child go through and read the booklets. And then after you've introduced several of these, let's say you've done E and I and O, you might have them sort the cards that had, just the, not the booklets, but the actual cards themselves. And I just want to highlight again, these are not just like the double letter phonograms. They are phonograms that can be made more than one way. So for example, I have S here. Now obviously it's a single letter phonogram, but can be made with an S, CI, and CE. So this is just a tool. You're having them practice using these and going over them over and over again to help them decode when they're reading. And I don't have this because I never made this, but you would also make a phonogram dictionary, which has all of these sounds. Again, the way they learned the initial phonogram they learned it for, so S would have S, and it would have a tab for each of them, and you could flip to that phonogram and see all the different ways that it's spelled. So it's just like something they can have with them while they're reading to help them out as well, and help them learn spelling. So I don't think I mentioned this before, but you may have noticed at some point we started with cursive and all of our materials were in cursive, and then as we're learning to read, we're actually reading in print, right? And my classified cards are also in print. So when I got to that point where we started reading in print, I actually pointed out to my daughter some of the differences in the letters. A lot of the letters actually look quite similar, like it's easy to see what it is. Some of the capitals were a little bit tougher for her to get, and there's some tricky ones like S that I pointed out to her and that we kind of went over a couple times. And to be honest, it has not been a problem at all. I'm happy with my decision to go with cursive, as we've been continuing also to write in cursive, but read in print. And it hasn't given her any problems in reading. So that's been fine moving forward. So that is where my booklet ends. And you just keep practicing, and it's a lot of practice reading and everything. Now, this worked really well for us up until this last step where we did the phonogram folders. It's a little different than how other programs do it, in that you're learning, right, all the different ways to make that particular sound, which might be helpful with spelling, but when you're reading, sometimes it's good to know all the different sounds that each single or double letter phonogram can make, which is kind of the opposite of that. And so I think that's where we kind of struggled with, it just was really challenging for her moving past the really easy readers. Like, she was able to do the really easy readers really well, and advanced with those. And then once we got to more things that were trickier, it was just harder. I also wanted some help with writing. So we did start using Logic of English Foundation program. So I just want to be, honest about that. We didn't make it the whole way through the booklet, but I am using this method again with my son, and then we might do the same thing, get that far, and switch to Logic of English. I think their program works really well with the Montessori method. And I think that giving them this kind of foundation with the sound game and the sandpaper letters and all the practice with that in the beginning of reading, actually it set her up to be able to move more confidently through the program and really set that solid foundation. So I'm happy with actually how that went, and I'm planning on doing basically the same thing with my son, of course following his lead as well. So that is the Montessori method for teaching reading using the AMI or the Dwyer approach. I love being able to share all this with you, so thank you for being here, and hopefully you found this information helpful. Please hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already, and you can hit the bell to make sure you get notifications when I have new videos. There will be more videos on our Montessori and Charlotte Mason inspired homeschool. We are going to be wrapping up this year, and then I'm already thinking about what we're doing next year, and I'm super excited. There will be garden and orchard videos as it is spring, and that is beginning. And of course, I am expecting a baby number 3 in June. So there will be some baby videos and pregnancy videos coming up as well, if that is something you're interested in seeing. And if there's anything else that you want to see, I really appreciate you being here, and I want to be able to share with you what you want. So please let me know in the comments or send me a message. I would love to hear from you. And until then, I'll talk to you later.